Hey folks, we are going to get our video started here today, starting with a file of fake employee survey data. If you remember from a previous post, that's pretty easy for Copilot to do, to create all kinds of different fake employee data for use in these kind of videos and demonstrations and etc. If you're interested in that and did not see previous video, please go back for that. You can get there from my profile. What we are going to do today is actually just kind of hop straight into it. So, as I mentioned in the post, we are interested in trying to determine what the sentiment is of our lovely file of employee survey comments here. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom there. So 120, we assume this is a question that is, what do you like about the company or something like that. I didn't really actually specify a question that this is supposed to be answering. So we can make that assumption, and we've got some very, general or specific responses to that particular question. So what I am going to do is actually go into the chat here. I've already got open. If you don't remember how to get there in Excel, Copilot should be up there in your corner. So you can click on that. It's going to open your chat window. And I'm going to say, hey, Copilot, because we're that familiar now. We're working with some employee survey data. Can you look at the comments in column B and assign a sentiment value for the comments in each row? I'm going to ask it to add this sentiment as column C. We'll see if it does that. It's been getting some varying results here and there, but then I'll show you what to do if it does not do that right away. So we will click on that. It's going to think about it. Soon you'll see it select the whole file here. There we go. Now it's looking at all the data, determining what it can and cannot do, and it's going to produce some information for us here. Okay, so this is what I thought was probably going to happen. It says he has looked at column B. Here's the sentiments. It gives the basic categories that it's using. It's basically positive, negative, and mixed. Done this a few times. That seems to be the default. You can actually tell it in your initial prompt, like say if you want very positive and very negative, you can tell it there when you're actually going to prompt. But here we'll just stick to these categories. So it says it's done all that. It did not actually just go ahead and put the column in there, but you see the little button down here will allow me to insert the column. So I'm going to do that. And then that quickly, we've got a sentiments column here added to our employee comments. So you'll see here that it also gives you some options for deeper results using using the advanced analysis mode. I would caution, of course, it's always good to play around with it and figure out what's happening with that. I'd caution doing too much with that unless you really know what you're doing once you click into some of that information as well. What I do also want to call out, so I know that, as I've worked with a lot of employee survey data, and I'm talking to my HR clients, a lot of them will ask, how is it determining this sentiment? So what you can do is say, Copilot, can you walk us through how you would determine the sentiment or the comments? And we will give it a little bit of time to respond there. And so here it tells us a little bit about how it was determined. So it's analyzing the tone, saying exactly what kinds of things fell into each bucket. You can also continue to kind of ask it more and more questions about how it determined that sentiment. In asking it some more follow-up questions, I did get it to tell me that it was using the rule-based method in order to determine what the sentiment is. It would be good to play around with. If you are someone that is very savvy in sentiment analysis, you may have some approaches that you're more comfortable with. I did get it to take a large language model approach to it as well as a few other different types of analysis. You can ask it to analyze it in a different way and then compare what the results might be if you're being extra thorough. But overall, it's a very simplified example. You normally have a lot of additional columns here of all sorts of data about the employees, and maybe even have themes and etc. that have been provided to you when you get the data. This would just be an additional data point or a cut of the data. But hopefully that helps. Thank you.